10 Sinister Encounters in Michigan. Spine-chilling legends reveal terrifying unexplained tales. A cold shiver crawled up Jenna's spine as she stirred the mac and cheese in a worn pot. The warmth of the kitchen stood in stark contrast to the unease that settled over her since the divorce. Maplewood, with its pristine lawns and smiling neighbors, seemed deceptively cozy, but shadows lurked too close, pressing around their home like an unwelcome visitor. The phone rang, breaking the silence, and with a hesitant glance at her kids, Max, absorbed in his drawing, and Lily, snuggled with her favorite stuffed bear, she answered. "Hello?" "Don't let them wander into the woods," a raspy voice warned. The urgency twisted the air in the room, sending a gut-wrenching chill through her. Children have disappeared, drawn in, like moths to a flame. The forest whispers their names. She brushed it off as nonsense, her heart pounding as the day-to-day chaos of dinner and bedtime loomed closer. Yet, that night, as she tucked in her children, the voice echoed in her mind. The troubling tales of Maplewood, the tales of children lured by unseen forces, churned in her thoughts, mired in a growing dread that gripped her heart. Days crept by as anxiety seeped into their lives, each moment threaded with tension. Max's obsession with drawing went beyond innocent childhood curiosity. At first, Jenna glanced at his artworks, their bizarre, twisted figures making her uneasy. But it was one particular image that froze her in place, a nightmarish scene marked by the clear likeness of two missing kids, silhouetted against a full moon. Goosebumps raced down her arms, and she dared not breathe, feeling the air thicken with unsaid words. Meanwhile, little Lily wandered, speaking of voices that called to her from the thick woods past their backyard. The neighbors' laughter felt hollow now, thin smiles betraying an underlying wariness. They spoke of legends, curses, a hunger that resided among the trees, festering in the night. And yet, a false sense of security pressed down, a calm before a storm. One evening, Jenna's thoughts swirling, she noticed the friendly officer stop by. At first, just a chat, but soon he leaned in closer, eyes probing. "How well do you know your kids, Jenna?" he asked, his tone shifting, becoming darker as something unsettling flicked behind his smile. The warm glow of the streetlights outside glimmered through the window, casting anxious shadows, and she swallowed hard, gripping the armrest of her chair. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Her chest tightened as she glanced toward Max, who sat silently, scribbling furiously. Where had her boy gone? How could her children remain untouched by the thickening shadow? She sprinted to him, wrenching the paper from his hands. Each stroke showed more terror, the figures creeping ever closer, as if reaching out, pleading. Tension tightened around her throat, and then there it was, a final detail, a date inscribed in the corner, cryptic yet looming like an omen, echoing within her. The lights above flickered ominously, plunging her world into a brief darkness, her heart racing in sync with the unknown, as dread crept through her very bones. On the clock, the hands turned perpetually, and a thought clawed at her mind, one she couldn't shake. The woods are calling once more. Jenna's heart thudded against her ribcage as the clock struck midnight. Shadows danced ominously along the walls, mocking her fear. She stood frozen in the hallway, listening. Beyond the walls, the house had settled into an eerie quiet, the kind that thickened the air with unsaid truths. Max's drawings lay crumpled on the kitchen table, remnants of a horror she couldn't fully understand. The cursed date loomed like a storm cloud in her mind. She could feel its weight, pressing heavily in her chest. What could it mean? She was terrified to find out. Glancing towards her children's bedroom, unease clawed at her throat. What if the woods had already begun to whisper sweetly in their ears? What if the shadows that had been growing near their home had taken hold in their dreams? She tiptoed to their door, her breath catching with every creak of the floorboards. With trembling fingers, she pushed the door open and peered inside, her heart racing. Max was curled up on his bed, drawings scattered about him like guilty confessions, while Lily was still clutching her bear, eyes fluttering in sleep. A shiver skittered down her spine, a flicker of relief washed over her. They were safe for now, yet, as she began to step back, a soft voice drifted through the open window, a melodic calling that seemed to pull at her insides, sweet yet sinister. "Mommy," it sounded like Lily, but deeper, as if echoing from the farthest corners of the woods outside. Jenna's instincts screamed at her to flee, to shut the window. But as she turned, a deep sense of dread engulfed her. The forest was beckoning, craving the innocence nestled inside her children's dreams. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to drown out the sounds, but they only grew louder and more alluring. "Lily, come play." She bolted out of the room and snatched the curtains closed, blocking the view. The moment she did, a chilling silence fell over the house, thick and tangible. Her breath quickened as the weight of the moment struck her. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just a childish whim or stray thoughts. Something dark was brewing outside their doors. Her mind raced back to the officer, the warning in his voice, "How well do you know your kids?" The realization punched her in the gut. What did he know that she didn't? And what about the phone call? She had brushed it aside, but that voice now, it played like a broken record in her mind. Suddenly, Max stirred, his eyes flickering open. Panic seized her. "Mom? What's wrong?" His innocent gaze bore into hers, drawing her back from the brink of her spiraling fear. Jenna pressed her finger to her lips, casting a nervous glance towards the window. "Nothing, sweetie. Just stay quiet for a second, okay?" The world outside seemed to hold its breath, but then she heard it again, a dreadful whisper, swirling from outside, creeping through the air and settling in the depths of her thoughts. Join us." With a sudden rush of adrenaline, she raced back to the kitchen, digging through the drawers for the old flashlight, a stubborn light in an encroaching darkness. She had to know. She had to understand what haunted her children's nights. As she flicked the light on, it pierced through the dark and illuminated her waving hand in the kitchen, trembling with fear. Shadows jumped and flickered like whispers of dread across the walls. Outside, the trees shifted uneasily, groaning with age and malice. Something was watching. Something insatiable. Then, the unmistakable sound of laughter danced in the cold night air, high-pitched, gleeful, and utterly wrong. "Mommy. Let us go play." In a split second, Jenna turned toward the sound, her heart plummeting as she noticed two figures standing at the edge of the woods, two small silhouettes that bore an eerie resemblance to her children. The flashlight dimmed, her throat constricted as she uttered a name. "Max, Lily?" They only giggled, the sound twisted in the wind, pulling at her heart like a dark melody. She took a step back, the walls pressing in on her, and knew it was time to confront the truth hidden in the whispers. What truly lurked in the dark, singing her children's names, awaited her answer, but her only choice was survival, and the woods were hungry. Jenna's heart raced, echoing in the deafening silence. The giggles echoed from the trees, mingling with the rustling leaves, chilling her to the bone. She flipped the flashlight switch again, but it flickered, threatening to extinguish. The figures danced in the pale moonlight, their outlines growing clearer yet more distorted. Those weren't just children anymore, they were something else, something twisted. "Max. Lily." Her voice cracked, desperation clawing at her throat. They seemed to take a step forward, brushing against the shadows like whispers woven into the night. The laughter morphed, turning into a low hum that made her skin crawl. Jenna gripped the flashlight tightly, the metal digging into her palm. The glow, weak and wavering, fought against the darkness around her. She glanced at the kitchen window, half expecting to see the forest spill into her home, armed with secrets and threats. What if they weren't her children after all? What if those things playing outside were simply using their shapes, their voices, to lure her into the depths of darkness? "This isn't real," she whispered, but doubt crept in like smoke. She stepped forward, driven by instinct. "What do you want?" The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The figures paused, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to freeze. They tilted their heads, eyes glistening with an unnatural light, reflecting the moon like glass. "Play with us forever," the voices joined again, an unsettling chorus that sent chills down her spine. They beckoned with small hands that promised warmth but delivered coldness, an invitation rooted in something sinister. "Join us in the woods." The ground beneath Jenna's feet felt unsteady, as if the very foundations of her home were trembling against the looming threat. She had the deep, gnawing sense that by stepping closer, she would lose herself in that darkness. Yet the shadows danced and pulsed, calling to her children's innocence, enticing her with the possibility of safety, of togetherness. Her thoughts spiraled. Was it right to risk everything? Was this the moment to fight for her children, or had they already slipped away? The questions rattled in her mind as she caught a glimpse of the drawings on the countertop, Max's wild sketches of monsters, strange trees, and unreachable heights. They felt less like art and more like warnings now. What if he had seen something? What if those visions he captured were more than dreams? Then, as if sensing her hesitation, the figures moved closer. The laughter shifted back to their real voices. "Mommy. We're scared." Lily's voice trembled, a painful imitation laced with something that wasn't quite right. Panic shot through her. "Stay back!" Jenna yelled, swinging the flashlight feebly, the beam barely grazing the edge of the approaching shadows. She felt like she was losing her grip on reality with every sound, every whisper, every step they took toward her. The forest seemed to pulse around them, blurring the lines between what was inside her home and what lay beyond. "You have to come," Max's voice twined with the others, a haunting melody that wrapped around her heart. "You'll like it, come play." In a flash of instinct, Jenna bolted back to the kitchen, searching for anything she could use, a weapon, a chance to shield her children from whatever darkness lay before them. The knife block glinted dangerously in the flickering light. Then, she spun back, ready to face whatever haunted her kids' dreams, but before she could move, the flashlight flickered out completely, leaving her engulfed in oppressive darkness. Heart racing, she gripped the knife, cold steel grounding her adrenaline-driven panic. The laughter rang out again, louder, more insistent, wrapping around her. "Mommy. Come out. We want to play." Somewhere in the depths of her mind, a desperate thought coalesced: what if it was already too late? The last remnant of the moonlight seeped away, leaving only shadows and the unearthly calls outside. The woods hungered, and the night was far from over. With a pained resolve, she knew she had to face the source of the terror, even if it meant confronting her children's fate in the inky blackness. Would she uncover their truth or be consumed in the process? The air was thick with dread as Jenna stood frozen, the knife trembling in her grasp. The shadows seemed to ripple, tightening around her like a vice. What once felt like her home now transformed into a twisted puppet of fear. The laughter, childlike yet grotesque, echoed relentlessly, drawing her closer to the door. "Mommy, we're waiting." It was Max, unmistakably. But the lilt in his voice twisted in an unnatural way that sent shivers racing along her spine. Deep down, she knew this wasn't right. Panic sparked through her veins. She stumbled back, her mind racing through desperate scenarios. Was there any chance her children were still in there, buried under whatever had taken their guise? Or were they already lost to the darkness, their souls consumed by whatever hungers lurked in the depths of the woods? The front door creaked loudly, an invitation to step into the night, the world beyond soaked in ominous shadows. Jenna felt an urge to run, to scream, but her feet felt glued to the floor. Agonizing thoughts clawed at her insides. If she fled, would her children be left to face the darkness alone? "Jenna! Help us!" Laughter mixed with sobs, echoing from the garden outside, beckoning her still further. She pressed the cold steel against her palm, steadying her breath. No more hesitation. No more time to doubt. "Max! Lily!" she cried, desperation bursting forth. Where are you? The darkness shifted, and for a moment, a blur formed. It felt wrong, as if something lurked beneath that familiar visage. The outline shifted, and there were Max and Lily standing at the tree line, silhouettes against the void. Their eyes glowed with an unsettling sheen, holding her gaze captive. "Mommy, come here." They began to move, gliding effortlessly across the ground, limbs unnaturally stiff, as if wound by invisible strings. The moonlight cast grotesque shadows that danced around their figures, showcasing the unsettling transformations, their faces too elongated, their smiles too wide. Jenna's breath stuttered. She ducked her head, feeling insane dread settle in. This had to be a nightmare. The ground felt too close, the walls too nearing. "Stay away!" she screamed, brandishing the knife. "Get away from me!" The figures faltered, but the laughter only intensified, enveloping her like a suffocating blanket. "Mommy! You'll have so much fun with us!" Within her, something primal surged. Jenna wouldn't let whatever had taken her children drag her into their enchanted nightmare. Mustering every ounce of courage, she stepped forward, heart thundering. "Show yourselves! Show me my children!" She felt electrified by her fury, desperation fueling her movements. The laughter shrieked, and suddenly, the shadows recoiled like they were hit by a gust of wind. Great claws of darkness lashed out, longer than any limb, twisting toward her. Panic surged through her body, driving her backward, but she refused to give in. "No! I want to let you take them." Jenna thrust the knife toward the ground, ready to face whatever horror they despawned, to reclaim her children, and then, a whisper rose from the woods, low and sinister, like fire crackling. "We're not the ones to fear." The ground trembled, and the trees shuddered, as the earth itself seemed to awaken, splitting apart beneath her feet. Jenna's pulse raced as roots writhed and branches twisted, forming a grotesque tableau of limbs and faces all echoing with laughter. Then, everything went silent. The unsettling stillness enveloped her as dread returned, heavier than before. Jenna's heart thundered in her chest as she felt the creeping sensation of being watched. The moon hung high, but it was the shadows that lurked under it that made her blood run cold. What had they unleashed? Could she truly save Max and Lily, or had they already become one with this dark entity? And then came a new voice, deep and resonant, breaking through the silence like thunder. "Choose, Jenna, it's either them or you." With horror settling in like a vice, Jenna knew one thing: she had to act. But could she risk everything for her children, or was survival the only option left? As the shadows encircled her tighter, she summoned her resolve, whispering a desperate prayer. The darkness advanced, beckoning her to make a choice, one that would determine the fate of them all. Would she find a way to escape this malevolent grip? Or was the darkness already too deep? Jenna's breath quickened, each pull of air growing shallow against the oppressive weight of the shadows. The voice, deep, commanding, sank into her. "Either them, or you." The words replayed in her mind, taunting her with the impossibility of the choice. She glanced back at the figures that were once her children, now somber puppets of the darkness. "Mommy, why are you being mean?" Max's voice twisted with mock innocence. The light in his eyes flickered, as if the darkness were a mere illusion barely held at bay. Jenna felt the cold steel of the knife slip slightly in her grip. This wasn't a game, it was life and death. "Please, I just want you back. This isn't you," she cried, her voice rising above the laughter, desperate to drown out the horrors around her. In response, the laughter erupted. It swirled around her, an inescapable whirlwind of childlike giggles and grand malevolence. The shadows thickened, creeping closer, coercing her into submission. Her legs quivered, the instinct to flee wrestled against the deeper urge to fight. Within her, fear battled determination. She remembered the warmth of their hands in her, their laughter that had lit up her world. Where had that gone? Shadows like claws scraped at her skin, a phantom touch sending icy tendrils of dread spiraling through her veins. "Enough!" Jenna screamed, her voice raw. With her heart pounding in her ears, she edged forward, knife held out before her like a beacon. The figures froze, uncertain for a split second, allowing her to breathe. "Show me my children," she boomed again. A gust of wind ripped through the clearing, rustling leaves and exposing the night sky, but Jenna's focus remained on the shadows. "You think you can take them from me? You're wrong." She tightened her grip, nails digging into her palm. Suddenly, the air shifted, warmth flooding the space as if the shadows themselves recoiled from her defiance. A sinister hiss came from the darkness, an angry warning. In seconds, the air thickened again, pushing against her with a tangible force, as if grappling with her very essence, fighting through the oppressive weight. Jenna stepped closer to the figures. "Where's Max? Where's Lily?" Her voice trembled, fear clawing at her throat. The shadows curled and writhed, answering her with prolonged silence. Then, one of the shadows flickered. For a fraction of a second, she thought she saw the outline of a tear-stained face. "Help us," Mommy Lily's voice struggled to echo through the thick void, tinged with a heartbreaking plea. Jenna felt her resolve waver. Could it be them? Could they truly be trapped and crying out for their mother? No, no, she shook her head, fighting the tide of grief. "You're not my children anymore. You're twisted." The shadows surged forward, the playfulness dropping away, replaced by a chilling hunger. They lunged for her, and for a terrifying moment, Jenna felt their pull. Dread flooded her body, survival instinct screamed for her to abandon the struggle, but a flicker of hope ignited deep within her. She wouldn't let them win. Catching her breath, she raised the knife higher. "If you want to take us, you'll have to fight for it." Once more, a cacophony of laughter erupted, blending in a dissonant symphony of malice. "Then let the games begin." The shadows slithered toward her, a creeping tide ready to engulf everything. Heart racing like a drum in her chest, Jenna braced herself. In the stillness following, she knew the choice would come down to a single moment. Would she champion her children against the dark or surrender to the consuming dread overwhelming her? Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet began to vibrate, shaking loose the very essence of the world around her. Jenna's thoughts raced. What could this mean? The trees shuddered violently, their branches twisting like agonized hands reaching out for salvation. "Mommy! Help!" The plea echoed, but now it came intertwined with a new urgency, the shadows thrumming with a pulse of chaos. A force pulled her, then released her brutally, sending her sprawling to the ground. The knife slipped from her grasp, clattering away into the darkness. Despair clawed at her throat. She had lost her weapon, but her will remained. She couldn't let this be the end. She struggled to her knees, sweat slicking her skin. Fear loomed larger than ever. The shadows advanced greedily, ready to claim their prize. A thought whispered in her mind: could she outsmart them? Could she find a way to get her children back without losing her own soul? A daring plan formed, but time was running out. She needed to act, and she needed to act fast. As the shadows drew near, a chilling voice reverberated through the air: "You've made your choice, Jenna. Now embrace the darkness or fight." Jenna clenched her fists, determination igniting her veins. There was no more room for fear. She had to reclaim her children and dodge the abyss. What would she find waiting for her in that dark embrace? Would she gain the strength to combat the insidious grip, or would the shadows consume her whole? The ground trembled violently beneath Jenna, sending tremors through her body. The shadows closed in, their forms shifting, grotesque shapes flickering in and out of existence, taunting her with smirking visages that held no trace of the children she once knew. The laughter deepened, echoing menacingly, wrapping around her like a noose. Embrace the darkness they cooed, a syrupy sweetness coated in malice. Jenna's heart thundered, too loud, drowning out their voices. Fear twisted in her stomach like a knife, sharp and unyielding. She had to think, to act. Scanning her surroundings, she locked her eyes on the shadows thrumming with energy. They pulsed, drawing dangerously close, whispering her name. "Jenna, come play with us." A chill swept down her spine as she fought against the urge to answer, to follow the siren call. In that moment, clarity pierced through the haze of panic. If the knife had abandoned her, she still had her voice. That was her weapon against these twisted echoes of her children. "You're not real," Jenna shouted, her voice breaking the spell that threatened to enfold her. "You're nothing but shadows. My children are lost, but they are not gone." For an instant, silence fell. The shadows recoiled as if struck. Jenna seized the opportunity, rising to her feet with a newfound strength. "I know who you are. You want to keep me here, away from them. But I won't let you." The laughter faltered, replaced by that deep, commanding voice. "You play a dangerous game, my dear. But you forget I am not merely shadow, I am hunger. I thrive in despair." Jenna's breath caught. That ominous presence seemed to expand, suffocating the air around her. "Give in, and I will feast upon your fear. Fight, and watch as your precious children suffer." Panic surged as memories flooded back, their cries, their smiles, the warmth of their small bodies. "I won't let you twist them into weapons against me." Every word was a challenge that surged from her heart. The darkness stirred, swirling around her, rising like a storm. She stretched her arms out, feeling an unnatural energy pulse around her fingertips. It was as if something long buried within her was awakening, urging her to stand firm. "If you want me, come and take me." The shadows hesitated, momentarily confused. For Jenna, time stretched like a taut string, vibrating with her resolve. She focused everything on her voice, letting it carry through the night. "Max. Lily. If you can hear me, fight back. You are stronger than this darkness." A flicker of light within the shadows erupted in response, bursting in a jarring contrast to the suffocating dark. The figures that had once been Max and Lily wavered, their forms beginning to separate from the chaos. "Mommy, help us!" They cried once more, this time with genuine terror. The dark entity roared in fury, its shadowy tendrils lashing out, ready to reclaim what it thought was its. Suddenly, Jenna's heart raced with the realization that the only way to save her children was to face the very source of this darkness. With a fierce resolve, she stepped forward again, forcing the shadows back with sheer willpower. "You don't own them. You can't hold them against me. I will not be afraid." The air crackled, and with every ounce of strength she could muster, Jenna shouted into the abyss as the shadows writhed angrily. "I choose love. I choose my children." As the words left her lips, the vibrations of the shadows shifted, a howling gust sweeping through the clearing. The very ground seemed to buckle. Would it be enough to weaken the darkness? Would it break the grip on her children? But as the shadows shrank back momentarily, Jenna felt an ominous presence gathering, stirring at the corners of her subconscious. "You think this is over? You've only scratched the surface," the shadows whispered ominously, "a pact unbroken." What new horrors awaited Jenna as she fought to reclaim her children's souls? Would she uncover the terrible truth behind the darkness, or would it ensnare her once and for all? The shadows pulsed with an almost palpable fury, their forms writhing like snakes in the dark. Jenna felt her resolve shatter beneath their gaze, a vicious grip tightening around her heart as if the shadows were savoring her fear. They seemed to whisper among themselves, the laughter growing sinister, each chuckle a reminder of her own impending doom. "Fight all you want, dear Jenna. Your children are already lost to me," the deep voice taunted. It held a twisted certainty, dripping with malice, a sinister authority that made her blood run cold. Jenna glanced around, desperately searching for a way out, but the darkness enveloped her like a heavy shroud, pressing in from all sides. It was like being buried alive, her chest tightening with each heartbeat. "Max! Lily!" she screamed, her voice cracking. The shadows shivered at the sound, a flicker of uncertainty crossing their distorted faces. The fleeting light that had sparked when she shouted for them faded, and panic gripped her once more. She was running out of time. With every painful second ticking by, she felt them slipping further away. Jenna planted her feet firmly, her resolve hardening against the encroaching darkness. "I want to let you take them." But the entity laughed again, a sound filled with a hunger only darkness could possess. "Oh, you're mistaken, my dear. They are already mine," twisted in anguish and despair. "I know their secrets and soon, you will too." Suddenly, a chilling vision flashed through Jenna's mind, a swirling abyss of her children trapped within the shadows, their faces contorted in fear and longing. They were calling out to her, but the voices drowned in the cacophony of darkness. "Mommy! Save us!" echoed through her mind, and Jenna's heart splintered at the sound. "No!" She hurled her voice into the void with all the strength she could muster. "I want to let you have them." Pushing through the haze of despair, Jenna felt a spark ignite within her, an unyielding determination fueled by love. She dug deeper, calling upon every shred of strength she had left, each breath igniting a fire in her soul that blazed brighter than the shadows. "Max! Lily!" She cried once more, not just calling, but demanding, summoning all the courage from her very core. "Fight back! You are stronger. Love is stronger than any darkness." At her words, a blinding light burst from the depths of blackness, illuminating the twisted forms around her. The shadows screeched in fury, recoiling from the unexpected brilliance. For a moment, she could see the frightened faces of her children, struggling against the encroaching dark. A flicker of hope ignited within her. They were still in there. But within the chaos, the dark voice roared in outrage. "You are a fool to believe you can save them. Your love is a mere spark against the hunger of my darkness." The shadows swelled, thickening like smoke, wrapping around Jenna's throat, squeezing, drawing the breath from her lungs. She gasped, her vision blurring, as the entity laughed, deep and resounding. "Plunge deeper, dear. The end is near." The shadows surged toward her, and she was swept into a swirling vortex of fear and despair, the world around her collapsing into darkness. Then in that moment of darkness, she felt it, a gentle flicker, the warmth of her children's love brushing against her skin like a summer breeze. It surged through her, brightening even the darkest corners of her soul. "I want to give up," Jenna shouted, her voice echoing like a war cry. She would fight. But just as quickly, the shadows snapped back, wrapping tight, stifling her words. The dark growled low and ominous, "But the game has only just begun. The truth lies in the light and the darkness hungers for it." Jenna's heart raced. What truth? What darkness consumed her children? How would she save them before it all slipped away? The shadows began to pull her apart like string unraveling. She clenched her fists, summoning every deep-rooted emotion, every shred of hope, preparing for the worst. But as the darkness closed in, a chilling silence fell around her, each breath felt like the last, every moment stretching painfully thin. What other horrors awaited her? Would the truth unlock the door to rescue her children from the malevolent hunger that threatened to tear them away forever? The vortex tightened around Jenna, twisting her mind in anxious spirals. It was suffocating, as if each shadow sought to consume her, drown her in despair, just like it had with Max and Lily. Panic gripped her anew, curling fingers of ice around her brain. How could she fight an entity that thrived on her worst fears? In the depths of that encroaching blackness, visions whirled, a shadowed landscape of lost dreams and broken promises. Flashes of children laughing in a sun-drenched park tumbled into view, followed by twisted faces crying out in agony. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. "Stay with me," she yelled, but the words barely escaped. Suddenly, a tremor rocked the darkness. The shadows jerked violently, some twisting away, as if repelled by an unseen force. Was it her will? Or something else? "Your love is weak," the voice echoed, mocking her with its thunderous resonance. But Jenna clung to the flicker of warmth that had penetrated the darkness. It was real, something tangible she could hold on to. Fueled by the palpable energy that surged within her heart, she screamed once more. I'm coming for you. I will find you. The shadows recoiled, twisting like frightened animals, their forms distorting backward. They hesitated, and Jenna seized the moment, driven by desperation. She, too, twisted and lunged forward, racing against the tide. Each heartbeat thundered like a drum, urging her to press on. Images of Max and Lily flashed tirelessly, pale faces filled with hopelessness, eyes wide with fear. This combined visualization thrust her forward, and she sprinted against the tide of darkness. She envisioned the light, a beacon that would guide her through the compartments of horror she was forced to navigate. But then came the whispers again, chilling and seductive. Let go, dear Jenna. Resign yourself to despair. You can't save them, you never could. Each hiss threaded through her resolve, trying to unravel her determination. Jenna shook her head. No. I refuse to listen to you. The darkness screamed in frustration, a discordant melody of fury. An image crystallized, her children bound within the shadows, but their faces began to shift, revealing fear mixed with defiance. Were they fighting too? Mom! Help us! The urgency of their voices sharpened her focus, the layers of darkness peeling back like paper. Her heart raced as a deeper roar erupted, and she felt the effort of their struggle echoing around her. Hold on! She shouted, feeling the tide beginning to break. She reached frantically, trembling fingers extending toward their silhouettes. She felt the shadows convulsing, as if her love was a flame igniting something long dormant within the void. A fissure opened, a narrow stream of radiance slicing through the oppressive black, but the shadows lunged, snapping hungrily toward her, like jagged teeth. No! This is not a game for you. The words slithered through the air, entangled with malice, striking like a whip. The crack widened. Jenna could almost see their faces clearly now, desperate and pleading. There was no way she was stopping. She pushed harder, holding tight to the light. With a deep breath, she channeled everything she had into stretching her arms wider. Max! Lily! Fight back! Please! She screamed, her desperation merging with pure, raw determination. As the shadows roared in protest, she caught sight of something, a glistening orb of light, bobbing slowly in the distance, like a lantern beckoning her forward. Its glow was just enough to illuminate the murky outlines of her children, frantically reaching back toward her, but as Jenna reached for them, the shadows surged forward in one last desperate attempt, rushing to snuff out the growing light. The air crackled with energy, the sphere flickering, the dark entity seething. Will you sacrifice your very soul to save them, Jenna? It hissed, an insidious whisper that reverberated through the darkness. What will you trade? Jenna's breath hitched. What would she sacrifice? Would it be enough? The walls of shadow closed in on her spirit. She hesitated, heart racing. What lay behind those choices? What truth awaited her, and could she withstand it? A dreadful silence lingered before the shadows surged, claws of despair closing in. Jenna could only grip the flickering warmth and push forward, not knowing if the truth would free them or destroy everything she held dear. What would be unleashed by her desperate choice? As the darkness loomed ever closer, Jenna steeled herself, ready to confront whatever horror came next. Jenna felt the very marrow of her bones tremble as the darkness tightened its grip, but she couldn't stop now. The orb pulsed faintly like a heartbeat, urging her on with promises of light and hope. Each pulse pushed back the shadows, frail tendrils shredding as she advanced. Max! Lily! She called, desperation slicing through her voice. I'm here. The words tumbled into the void, swallowed by relentless whispers that promised despair. But the flicker of the orb swallowed those sounds. It expanded, swelling against the encroaching dark, illuminating her children's faces, mottled, twisted silhouettes filled with longing and terror. Yet Jenna saw something else glimmering in their eyes, tenacity. Fight! She urged, her heart racing. As if obeying her command, the children's faint figures straightened, their hands splayed wide, mirroring hers as they summoned something buried deep within. A shared energy surged, it coursed back towards Jenna. "Mom! You have to trust us." Max's voice crackled like dry leaves in a fire. The shadows screamed, furious roars filling the air, churning darkness vying to swallow them as the fissure in the void slowly widened. "The more you resist, the deeper your despair will become." The entity howled. Jenna gritted her teeth, a wild mix of fear and determination bubbling within. Was she ready to exchange everything just to pull her children from this hell? Another pulse erupted from the orb, stronger than before, shattering the shadow's hold for the briefest moment. She could almost touch them now, their flickering forms glowed real and vibrant, her own love swelling within that glistening light. But it flickered. The darkness was relentless. Phantoms clawed at the edges of her resolve, filling her mind with doubt. "You can't do this alone." The voice twisted into a cacophony of echoes, all her failures, all the moments she couldn't protect them. "Mom! Please!" This time, it was Lily's voice, striking like thunder, igniting Jenna's heart. "You have to believe in us." With newfound vigor, Jenna pushed through that wave of darkness, their combined energy surging. The warmth of their bond crackled against the icy expansion of despair, the shadows lurched again, crashing toward her, sharp and jagged. Jenna's resolve wavered momentarily, doubt crawled into her veins. "Mom!" They cried a final time, their voices slicing through the desperate haze. The orb shimmered, casting brilliant beams that sliced through the black void. Each beam struck like a bolt of lightning, setting the shadows ablaze in torment. Suddenly, Jenna felt a tide of clarity washing over her fears. "Sacrifice what?" she whispered, breathing in gasps. Everything snapped into focus. "My soul?" she echoed, looking into the glowing faces of Max and Lily. The truth surged. The price of salvation trembled beneath her skin. "Do it. We'll follow." Max urged, the orb pulsing rhythmically, urging her forward. With renewed vigor, Jenna braced herself, heart pounding like a drum. Shadows writhed violently, shrieking in protest, desperate to extinguish this spark of defiance. Jenna realized now the love she felt wasn't weakness but strength. Every ounce of despair that held her back was also a piece of her fierce love. Could she really choose to trade it all for them? "I'll do it!" she screamed, thrusting her palm into the light. A blinding flash enveloped her, devouring the cold tendrils curling all around. But in that moment, horror coiled within her. As the world spun, Jenna felt a new weight settling on her chest, an unfamiliar chill creeping in, mingling with the warmth of the orb. And amidst this transformation, the whispers of the shadows turned to laughter, the kind that chills you to the bone, echoing with sinister delight. "Welcome to the dark side, Jenna," it hissed, as the abyss seemed to welcome her with open arms. Was she succumbing to darkness, or had she unleashed something even more sinister? The answer floated just out of reach as the world around her blurred, spinning into chaos, like the gale of a storm. Would the price she paid bond them together? Or shatter everything into oblivion? A new wave of dread surged, the darkness was not finished with her yet. What truth awaited her in this newfound embrace of shadow? The pulse of the orb dimmed, she could feel it was only the beginning. Jenna's eyes fluttered open, but instead of light, she found herself swallowed in a deep, unfathomable darkness. A chill swept through her body, and she felt the pressure of unseen forces pressing against her, constricting her lungs. Heart pounding, she struggled to grasp her surroundings, reminding herself this was the consequence of her choice. A sacrifice to save her children or to surrender to the malevolence that haunted them. "Mom!" The faint voice cut through the silence, fragile and laced with uncertainty. Jenna strained to hear it, her pulse quickening. She reached for them, desperate for guidance, but the shadows pressed in, whispering promises of despair, tempting her with thoughts of letting go. No! She shouted, her voice resonating with a new strength born from determination. I will not let you have them. A flicker of light sparked before her, illuminating the tangled darkness for a brief moment. She surged forward, feeling an otherworldly pull guiding her in the right direction. Lily. Max. I'm coming. As she navigated the suffocating void, Jenna's heart raced, resonating with the urgent thumper of love and despair fighting within her. Every pulse felt like an anchor, tethering her to the memory of her children's laughter, of their innocent faces shining in blissful joy. Fight! Fight back! She screamed, channeling every ounce of her being into pulling them away from the abyss. That in response, a rush of warmth filled the space, battling the tendrils of despair surrounding her. She could feel her children's presence, dim yet familiar, growing stronger, the darkness trembling at their fiery bond. Mommy! They cried again, voices echoing back like an ethereal choir. The shadows howled, writhing as the light expanded. Jenna pushed forward, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Show yourselves. Come to me. With relentless determination, she barreled through the vast expanse of shadows, daring her fears to rise. Suddenly, the shadows twisted violently, threatening to engulf her entirely. You think you can defy me? The deep voice roared, reverberating through the abyss. You will witness despair beyond comprehension if you don't let go. I will never let go. Jenna screamed back, fire igniting within her. I will tear through this darkness for my children. Then, a sudden change in the air pulled at her senses. From behind the raging conflict, an unearthly glow began breaking through, illuminating the contours of frightened faces. Her heart leaped with exhilaration. I see you. I see both of you. She shouted, amidst the chaos. Mom! Please! Max's voice, raw and desperate, filled her heart with fierceness. The blur solidified, illuminating two figures struggling against the dark, longing to break free. Jenna stretched her hands toward them, feeling a connection bridging the vast distance. Hold on. I'll get you out. Just trust me. Each word spilled from her lips like a lifeline, each syllable infused with love and commitment. With a sudden rush, the figures convulsed, tearing free from the grasp of shadows that held them. Screams of frustration echoed around. A blinding light erupted, forcing the shadows to recoil, allowing Jenna to dive deep into the fray. She could see them now, could reach them. Max! Lily! She shouted again, and they began to move, the determination carved into their youthful features, glimmers of bravery sparking in the darkness. Fight! Take my hand! The tether between them ignited like a flame, and in that moment, they lunged toward her, breaking free from the clutches of despair. Julie felt their hands clasp hers, the warmth coursing through her like electricity. Together, they formed a bond strong enough to challenge the darkness. Suddenly, the dark entity howled, its voice erupting in rage like a wounded animal. You think you've won? You're merely delaying the inevitable, Jenna. But Jenna stood defiant, the combined light of their love overcoming the shadows in an impressive display. Love conquers all. We share this strength, and you shall never separate us. With those words, they thrust back against the void, unwavering and resolute. As the dark entity reeled, the shadows began to splinter and fade, the laughter shrieking and disintegrating into echoes of surrender. The darkness could no longer hold them captive. And just like that, a dawn broke. A radiant light flooded the abyss as Jenna guided her children towards safety. They broke free from the claws of darkness, emerging into a world softened by the morning sun. Every shadow scattered, the air humming with warmth and life. Jenna pulled her children into an embrace so tight it felt like a blessing, waterworks spilling down her cheeks, tinged with tears of relief. We did it. We're safe, we're together, she whispered, feeling the weight of all the fear dissolve. The giggling laughter of her children filled the air, bouncing happily. Don't go into the woods again, please. Max said, his words wrapped in the innocence of a child who had faced something far too sinister. Lily squeezed her bear tighter, wide-eyed. "I just want to play in the sun." Jenna smiled, the warmth of their laughter washing over her like a balm. "No more woods, ever." She looked over her children, heart still filled with fright and vulnerability, yet emboldened by their victory. The bond shared between them felt more potent than the darkness that had tried to separate them. As they walked away, hand in hand, the shadows faded into memory, nothing more than tales to tell in the light of day. But deep down in Jenna's heart, she knew that love would always be the shield against whatever darkness came next. So they moved forward, together, towards a bright horizon, their laughter rising like a symphony. "Now, let us make a pact. This is the moment to show your love for this story. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive tales. Smash that like button now to keep the algorithm alive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts about how Jenna fought off the darkness. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to see this ending. Your support keeps these stories alive.